Good morning, everyone. It's Joker, and today we are back with another slime video, and with the most likely coming up on the end of the Konosuba collab. It is time to do a new tier list ranking, because it's entirely possible that we get more Konosuba stuff in 3 or 4 days. It is also entirely possible that we don't, and we just get a whole new meta, and the Konosuba collab is officially over on the 19th. In which case, if it is, then great. Then this video will continue as planned, and if not, then I'm going to scrap this entire thing, and we'll re-rank it later. I don't know, but obviously these are like the main full team of meta units that have come out, so it's time to rank them. However, I have received a few comments, more than a few actually, and some suggestions from you, the people, that this old tier list is slightly outdated, which I would agree with. You know, I took a step back and I looked at it and said, yeah, some of these units, they could be re-ranked into a better way. So this is what the tier list used to look like. We used to have a lot of units in Godly, and a lot of people were arguing that some of them may not necessarily be at this point anymore. They're still good, but maybe not deserving of the godly rank. To which I agree. So I redid this whole thing. So now it looks like... you go away. It looks like this. This is the new tier list. I have re-ranked all the existing units except for the new Konosuba ones. So, very quick overview. The Masked Hero gets her own tier now, and that's just it. She is currently the only unit that can use Rewind in the entire game, and it is a very, very, very useful skill. As in, if you can put her on a team and she makes sense, she will be on that team. If you don't use her in Valor Cup, I'm sorry, but you're not doing that hot. For most Jubilee normal fights, if you don't have the hero, your life is gonna suck. Therefore, she deserves her own tier by herself above the Godlies because she is one of a kind, and she is an incredible support unit, while also attempting to be an AoE DPS, even though she's over a year old at this point. And the fact that she is still heavily meta-relevant is incredible for a year-and-a-half-old unit, well, over a year-old unit in a gacha game. So, she's up there. The Godly tier is now reserved for mostly EX units and self-sufficient nukers, DPS units, with some supports. So, Dark Milim is Orb Changer, Alt Support, and Attack Buff. Guy is Orb Changer, Alt Support, technically an Attack Buff because he gives crit to everybody, you know, that makes sense. Shuna steals 3 orbs, and it's very, very common to get 3 of someone, so she's a self-sufficient unit into 6 orb sends, plus her damage output. Guy. Octagram Guy has finally made his way up to Godly because we can no longer disprove the fact that for a newer player, he is a much better pickup than Valentine, than Romorus or Milim. His usefulness in all hard content now cannot be understated. His guaranteed 100% chance to stun at a relatively low 25-point cost is invaluable for people that may not have the full meta and can't nuke on turn 8 or turn 5 or whatever, and you just need to stun and stun and stun, and he's the only one that can realistically do that on a reliable basis, because Raphael, who is also in Godly, does stun. It costs more than double the cost of Guy, though. But Raphael's here too. The stun, the pierce, the alt resistance down, he can be DPS, he can be support on pretty much any team. Unless they're nerfing pierce, which is the only issue, but that's it. Water Shuna, still, in my opinion, a godly unit, because she's got the blue orb changing, and she's got the alt buff, the same as Guy, and the same as Megumin, who we're going to rank, so spoiler alert, where do you think she's going to go? Shuna, I still think deserves godly tier. Yes, she is kind of, you know, power crept out by Guy and Megumin, but Guy and Megumin both have more costly skills for a higher percentage buff and, you know, more orb changing, but sometimes your team isn't built for that. Or sometimes you don't need the crits from Guy, and sometimes you don't want Megumin as an orange orb changer and a green if you have Shuna, who you don't really need that extra 10% ult damage on the team because Shuna and Megumin aren't going to be your DPS units. There are many scenarios where you can flip them out. in which case she's still really, really good, right? So that's the same reason Milim is here. Even if she's not the main DPS, she's got the alt buff, she's got the orb changing to greens, so we're covered on those fronts. The S tier is a lot of, very, very good DPS units that may be less useful everywhere, but more useful in their own respective metas. Milim, EX Hinata, unfortunately, she just doesn't get used a lot. She is an orb changer, and she is a support, and she is a self-sufficient nuker. So, I mean, she's very good, it's just that you don't really use her a lot in the game, right? And that may be because we don't have a lot of water stuff going on, like, we just had the Gob to beat down battle, sure. But other than that, like, I've never used Hinata at all since her meta, and that's just a sad fact. I use Bride Xion, she's gotten a lot of, new forces, she got her skill revamp, so she's no longer godly, but she is still an S tier damage dealer, while still being a single orb changer. Trainee, stonks have risen, rushing alts, blue orb changing, the protection gauge for the first 3 turns from her trait. Very, very strong abilities for any blue focused team. Dark Vow with her skill revamp is giving a lot of alt damage if you can swing it. Milim, generic orb converter and attack buffer. Rimuru, orb change and physical attack. Shinsha can be good in a pinch for space teams who need extra alt gauge and the extra alt damage. Violet, both Violets actually. One's a support, one is a damage dealer that's self-sufficient for her buffs. Albus is a very good orb changer and pure support. And then Water Hinata is still a decent damaging unit. She's not an EX character, but she can still put up decent numbers if you put her on a team with a whole bunch of other really powerful supports. You just only hit 490 instead of 735 because you don't have an EX ult. But she can still do good damage, and she's not, she's not useless, right? She's still good. A tier, we're going down into EX supports. There will be no EX unit for now under A tier, just because most of them have very good value. Some of them have higher value than others, but you get the point. A lot of supports, a lot of DPSs that are just kind of phased out. AoE DPSs, since AoE metas are, here and there, come and go. Mostly supports, though. And then we have the big 3, and I singled them out because they are very important, right? The team building video I put out highlighted how important they are. And individually, Milim and Milim, they're B or C tier, right? They're gonna go down here. Gazel is probably a B tier. He's a very old, self-sufficient DPS, but the fact that their protection gauge is used on 90% of teams at any given point on any given stage in the game kind of brings their value up. So they get their own little category, the big 3. In between A and B, I think that was a fair placement. You could argue that it could go between B and C, but the value of the triple protection is so high. And then B tier is a lot of all the healers actually, and then most of the typing supports, because they can only be used on one team. Realistically, you have to pair them with a nuker of the same type for them to activate, so it's not good to bring Dark Shinsha on a water team. There's no reason. There's no point in bringing Water Xion on a fire team. So it is what it is. We've got the old alt damage support units. They're here too. The healers, we got Rimuru, Shizu with her skill revamp, Velzard and Raphael with their skill revamps, Fire Shizu, again, is a typing support, Grand Admiral Diablo, Carrion is down here. He can be good still, but there are units that can give more than what he can do. And then we get down to C tier, which I think the biggest drop in fall from grace is Anniversary Rimuru. He's just not useful. I'm sorry. He's just not. He's a gimmick. His ult yoink and his crit is cool, but there's a lot of units that give crit. His crit damage is again very specific to dark units. It is what it is. And then as we go further down, we have made Rimuru into an actual tier. His usefulness is only really good now in ranked Valor for very specific scoring setups where you need maximum HP. Not this current Valor Cup as I'm recording this. Like, he is not used. So only one spot, and it's every so often. And then, we have some old units who orb change but don't do too much. And then we have the really trash units down here. Poison and his taunt and blah blah, both Dinos. I'm sorry, Wind Dino, you're not good. all your skills are debuffs and they're not very high. You're meant for a burst team that's a year old now. Doesn't cut it. Daggerel, even with his skill revamp, is just not that impressive. He hurts himself, he heals himself, he gets a little bit extra ult resistance down now. Whoop-de-doo. So yeah, that is my new ranking, and we're 10 minutes in of me explaining this already, so I guess we'll make a timestamp for just when we start ranking the new units, which will start now. Megumin. Oh my god, she's in godly tier. Why is that? Oh, right, because she's Guy. Except better than Guy, but worse than Guy in some aspects, right? Guy does the triple orb change, like Megumin. He does 2 greens and an orange. She does 2 oranges and a green, so the counterpart. They both have 80% ult buffs for the entire team. Great. Guy gives physical allies crit, which if you're running a physical team, then great. You don't need to bring the hero, because you got crits. Megumin gives herself 25% magic attack. Great. She's a nuker. Like a dedicated nuker, now that she has a personal buff. Awesome. Can you still use them on any team that runs blues? Yes. Can you use them on any team that you need an alt buff? Yes. Do they have good traits? Yes. Protection gauge turn 3, protection gauge turn 2, maybe. I think Guy's turn 3. Hold on. Let me check that. Guy's protection trait is every 3 turns. Yes. They're good. She's good. She'll be good for a while. Moving on. Aqua. Aqua has the ult force, like the ult rush on the gauge for the highest attack unit. Great, 40%, that's great. She has the stacking pierce resistance down, which can help your damage, incrementally. And then she has the pierce rate and pierce power, which is just slightly better than Albus, but she's going to go into S tier. She's a single target. You can definitely use her as a DPS, right? She's got the 490% multiplier, which goes up. She's got, a support buff that hits herself. I mean, if she's the highest unit, she'll force her own ult. She's good. She's good. You can use her on most teams, but I'm going to put her into S tier. Kazuma is going to go into A tier, right? We've done the tests. Maybe it was a little biased of me to do it in a low-face Predator battle. However, even in Inferno 1 and Inferno 3, where I brought like the big-time attack damage dealers, Kazuma, Rimuru, Milim, yes, he does have a higher attack buff at 50% versus 45 and 40. So automatically he'll do an extra bit of damage there. And then I just expect more out of a 50% defense down nerf. Even in Inferno 1, where their stats are quite good. It's like 12 or 13k versus the Predator battle, which has like 2. Right? I expected much higher damage from him than I did with Milim, whose light resistance was not benefiting anyone on the team. I expected a bigger gap for what amounts to a 100% kind of buff, right, versus a 45% buff. So he's not that impressive as a support. He's good at orb changing. Like he's a good package, right? Don't get me wrong. He's still A tier. He's not down here with the scrubs, right? He's just the least impressive of a good meta, which is an oxymoron, right? So I'm gonna put him into A tier for now. Moving on, the free-to-play list. I have removed the free-to-play protectors from here because it's not really fair to rank free-to-play protectors versus free-to-play battle units. They serve different purposes. So we are no longer ranking the free-to-play protectors here, but we are going to rank Darkness, and funnily enough, she's going to be in B tier. Why? Well, she's good. I mean, we know that, now I know that if you send her as like the 5th or 6th orb, she will hit. So cool. Her orb changing is a special convert, which, we have a special converter here, we have a converter here. So that's good. And then she also gives 20% extra ult gauge on that convert for the blue orbs, which is really powerful, which, is really good. Her taunt can help you in random scenarios, a bit of a pinch there. Not as useful as maybe stacking crit damage or giving ult gauge or buffing greens or healing, but she's not useless. So B tier, I think, is a fair ranking of her. If we were to grade her on her accuracy, she'd be, probably C tier, but we know we can play around with that. She's just a funny unit. So not much time spent on her. And then moving over to the protectors, we will, wait a second, hold on. Oh, I'm missing Rimuru, hold on. Alright, we got Rimuru in. Rimuru is going to go up to S tier. I've already redone the whole protection list just a little bit ago, so he's going to go up in S tier, so I don't need to redo everything. I think that's a fair assessment. He's a generalized stacking protector, and as we showed from, well, as of today's video, the comparison of stacking protectors, he's still really good, right? He's beaten by Shuna, which makes sense because Shuna's double stacking, but he's generic as well. So anybody can benefit from him as long as you're running a blue-focused team. So I think he's deserving of S tier. And then ranking the free-to-play protectors, we'll go newest first with Shuna, who actually really impressed me as far as what a free-to-play protector can do, now that she's essentially like a mini Space Veldora, right? Raising your cap by 30, which is less than Veldora, but giving the same type of skill point buff like Veldora, but Veldora's on all orbs, not just blues. So I think a fair assessment would be C tier, right? She's the best out of all the free-to-play protectors thus far from EX metas. But she does not compete with Bride Shizu, or Cabby, or Chloe, just because they do multiple things and help you do multiple things at a time. Shuna does have some hiccups, having the really bad, skill cap increase from Diablo, and the bad skill point gain from orbs from Veldora. It's like the worst of the two stacking protectors they put into one, but it's still a stacking protector, which is better than what all these ones can tell and say. So I think she's actually a very good unit for a new player who doesn't really understand what stacking means. They could use her, learn how to do it, and then apply that to a premium summonable stacking protector. And then Aaron's going to go here, you're going down here, and you guys can go here. Like, you're still kind of stacking. I might even put them down here. Like, you stack, you lower defense, you up attack, you increase the cap by 20 points, you give yourself 20 points. Like, it's technically a stacking protector, these two, but they're just not good at it, because 20 points here and there is not going to cover the cost of an orb change when you use it twice, right? Now it's 65 points and you get 20 back. Ooh, you don't buff the skill point gain on blues. What are you doing? It's just not very efficient, so I don't rank them very highly. Soe is just a sad thing. I don't know what they were trying to do with him. Aaron, can be good. She's got the follow-up still, specifically on only green orbs, and lower damage on that. So that is the current Konosuba rankings plus the redo of this battle unit tier list. So I'm sure I will trigger multiple people because tier lists are never always generally accepted. There's always someone who thinks that some unit should be somewhere else, and you know what? That's totally fine because it's my fucking opinion, and you are allowed to have your own. But I'm the one making the video, so this is my tier list, and you can agree with it or you can not agree with it. Either way, doesn't really matter. So let me know in the comments how triggered you are, or how much better you think this tier list is versus the last one, and we'll go from there. But that's it for me, guys. Take it easy. Ignore this Gabru, because for some reason tier lists still won't let me delete people or images because it's dumb. It's 2023. Come on, guys. But yeah, that's it for me. Take it easy, and I'll see you all later.